What's going on? It's your main man, Big Business, and you are now tuned into Mental Health is the New Wealth. We got a special one for you today, so I'm going to see if you recognize these quotes. Quote number one: we keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Okay? And quote number two: it's kind of fun to do the impossible. It's kind of fun to do the impossible. If you haven't guessed it yet, you haven't looked behind me, there's a clue there. And this is the biggest clue you got right here. Yes, you guessed it. We're focused on Walt Disney today. Walt Disney. I had to dig deep on this one, and there's some things that people know. Obviously, people know he's responsible for Walt Disney pictures, animations, so many things he did in his lifetime. Only lived to 65. But fit a lot of life in that time frame. So what we're gonna do is kind of break this up into three segments. Segment number one is going to be some of the challenges he had to overcome. Yes, we're going to start with the challenges. We're going to start with the challenges because oftentimes the challenges are directly related to the successes. How many challenges are you willing to subject yourself to try to overcome to get to the successes? The challenges usually come before the successes. So I'm going to start with the challenges. All right. And he had, when I tell you he had several, he had several. He went bankrupt. That's one. I said, okay, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it's a big deal because we all know those lenders, when it comes to bankruptcy, when you have that bankruptcy, you might have a hard time financing the next deal that you have coming in. So bankruptcy is a big deal, depending on how you structure your business. So he faced bankruptcy. This is the one most people don't know. I didn't know this one. He had a nervous breakdown in 1931. A nervous breakdown based upon overexhaustion from working too hard. A nervous breakdown. It's not just I can pop a pill and it's cured. His whole body, his whole nervous system completely went haywire. That's one of the problems he faced on the way to becoming a legend. So that's one. He lost his job at the newspaper. They said he had a lack of creativity. Can you imagine Walt Disney being accused of having a lack of creativity? But along the journey, we get stronger, we diversify, and we get labels along the way that may not apply, and we can't let those labels stop us. So another thing he had to overcome was an animator strike in trying to make Snow White. That's another thing. And because of these banking issues, he also had to mortgage his house on one of his projects to become successful. Had to take a chance and bet on himself. And if that wouldn't have been successful, he may not be a household name today. So these are just a few of the challenges. Oh, I want to throw one more in there as well. At one point, he was living out of his office and eating canned beans. You heard me right. He was eating canned beans and living out of his office at one point, trying to, after the first failed business, trying to establish a new business. And we'll get into that in a minute because he had a lot of hardship on his way to Mickey Mouse. That was not the first character that he created, and he had some contracting issues with the first character, and ultimately, because of a copyright dispute with the distribution company, a character who he was largely responsible for creating, was no longer under his ownership, under his guidance, under his direction. So all of these adverse circumstances, and I covered a lot. Um, all of these things happened before he reached these next plateaus I'm about to mention. So I know you're wondering, why did I change shirts? I had to change shirts because he never gave up. Walt Disney never gave up. And because he never gave up, this is what he was able to accomplish. He has won the most Academy Awards out of any person in the history of the Academy Awards. He won 22 Academy Awards while he was alive. He also was nominated 59 times. 59 times. Okay? So he was a pioneer in integrating technology in terms of color to animation. So some of you obviously went around when Mickey Mouse was created, but we're talking about that was the first animation created, and it was in black and white. It was in black and white, in terms of a graphic that actually moved. So obviously he was a trendsetter in technology, but the first cartoon in 1928 was black and white. So not only was he a pioneer in making animation, he also started to add things where color and motion and different camera angles were integrated into the cartoons to make the cartoons more lifelike. Okay, so and I'm not going to cover everything because there's obviously a whole lot to cover, but we know a lot of the hits. I'll cover some of that in a little bit in terms of all of the products that Disney was responsible for. But some of the key points where people may not be aware are part of the reason he was able to reach the masses is because he brought the Mickey Mouse Club to television. That was part of what he had to do to make an adjustment to target a demographic of young people who still were curious, who still had the ability to be, adventurous and having an imagination. Because he recognized as his difficulties when he was going through all of those struggles, a lot of people who are older don't believe that these types of things are true based upon not being able to have the mindset to overcome the adversity before they get to the success. That's why I started with the struggle and the adversity and success. The majority of what I talked about really was between, say, 1923 with the failed company, 1926, all the way up until 1941, until he actually, made Snow White. Now, Snow White was the first feature animation that was a full-length feature animation. So we're talking about, not a few seconds. This was a large undertaking. This cost in 1941, and it was the first, $1.5 million. So this is why he had to mortgage his house. It was a huge risk, a huge chance. It was not something that had been done before. It was a risk. There's no other way to say that. And he was able to be successful. But again, some of his projects were successful, on a large scale. He was the first in terms of many things, but he had to undergo many adverse situations and challenges. And then the vision for Disneyland. Some people may confuse Disneyland and Disney World. Disney World is in Florida. Disneyland was in California. So he had to do some different things in order to draw this blueprint, have a vision for, first of all, establishing Disneyland and getting the financing for that. And then pretty much drawing out the blueprint for his legacy work in Florida, which would be Walt Disney World. And he had to acquire 27,000 acres of real estate, and he was able to do so under various company names and shell corporations in order for the price not to go up. Because once someone got a hold of that vision, if they were able to find out, it may cost him more and it may not be something that's actually able to happen. So sometimes you have to go and use unconventional means to get the success that you want. And a lot of people are going to think you're absolutely crazy. But the thing about that is you have to act. You have to act the part. And we go into our work environment so often and we act the part for them to get what in many cases is a standard salary. You don't get additional monies that are significant if you perform better. So sometimes you have to believe in yourself. Where is that? I know I got it down here somewhere. Sometimes you have to believe in yourself. And that's what Walt Disney did. He believed in himself so much to where he was willing to undergo living in his office, eating canned beans, willing to mortgage his house, willing to go bankrupt with the first company, willing to come back from his first character, which was a rabbit being stole for copyright issues, because all of these things made him make sure when he rebuilt with purpose, intentionality, and intense perfectionism. I know people don't like perfectionism, but he experienced what happens when you're not almost obsessed with doing the best possible thing. And I came across a Matthew McConaughey interview where he said in his acting, everything he did fell short of perfect, but the reality of what he did, aspiring for perfect, was a reality that he could live with because he strived for perfection. Walt Disney did the same thing when it came to building Disneyland, Disney World. He went through a lot of painstaking processes. It is said that he, even though he was working very hard, he made it a policy to try to know every employee he had and call them by name when he visited. Again, trying to make it a personal experience when you work for Walt Disney. When the rides were designed in Disneyland to make sure it was a great experience, he would continue to do things in terms of changing angles, making adjustments to have a better experience for the person who was riding the ride. It wasn't just good enough that it was built. It was good enough because he continued to try to perfect it and make it better. And you can see that across his lifetime in terms of continuing to try to move forward and imagine and draw blueprints and visions. Much of the things that he started to draw infrastructure for, he didn't live out to see. So in his fullness. So the blueprint for Epcot, that came from him, but Epcot wasn't operational and in full bloom at the time of his death. But he made sure he had meticulous plans and outlines and had his vision. And this is going to lead me to a different point before I go to his habits. That's the part I think people sometimes need to actually study. If you have a highly successful, highly driven person, oftentimes you don't know their in particular habits that they used in order to become this successful. So that's going to be the last piece. Kind of in the beginning, let's review here. We covered the struggles and the sacrifices that had to happen in order to obtain the successes and the groundbreaking, record-breaking successes that he had. And then the last portion that I'm going to cover is going to be a relationship to his habits. Again, that mental breakdown that he had, how did he adjust his lifestyle in order to try to get some balance so he wouldn't experience something like that again. Ladies and gentlemen, again, success is not easy, and there is no AI cheat code for being highly successful. You got to put in the work. And I want to encourage you because we know it doesn't come easy, but we do have to adjust our mindset. If you're willing to do what most people aren't willing to do for long periods of time, you're going to get closer to your goal of success. And that may take 5 to 10 years. But 5 to 10 years going in the right direction is a lot better than sitting still complaining about what someone else is not doing for you. There's no power in sitting still. There's no power in not being curious about how to make things better in your life. There's no power in that. So when you are sitting still, you're going to feel powerless. When you are fearless, it doesn't mean that you don't have fears. It just means that you fear less than other people. And if you fear less than other people and are willing to take action with that, you can have an outcome that most people will not have because they're not willing to go to the next level, some people may call extreme, to achieve a certain level of success that makes you be fulfilled in your purpose. So next, we're going to kind of go into some of the habits and highlight some of the successes of the movies that he did have. So stay tuned for that as well. Walt Disney, he is a legend and he was different, and you are too. It had just started with Mickey Mouse, and everything else came after. Again, never give up. After suffering a nervous breakdown, Walt Disney started to do things like ice skate and calisthenics, and he also took up polo. He made sure he didn't eat large meals and he snacked often. Walt Disney also had a concept of plussing, constantly enhancing everything to make it better. Although he died at the age of 65 in 1966, his empire is now worth an estimated $172 billion. Walt was a legend. Make sure you're courageous in the face of adversity.